Hi all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my channel Chadvari Talks. This is my first video and I request you all to view, subscribe and share your comments so that it helps me to make more videos going forward. So today's video is all about SQL Fundamentals, which we formally call it as SQL, which we'll see more in detail in this video. In order to understand more about this video, you no need to have any prior experience. It is just like an introductory level of video, which gives you a better understanding of how we will be using SQL related concepts in our day-to-day data world. So what is SQL? In a simple terms, we'll see now. World is completely driven by data and lot of data is being stored in databases. So we will try to see what is this data and what types of data and how the data is stored in the databases also. So the commonly used language to access or to modify the data is nothing but our SQL. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, which we formally call as SQL. So what is SQL we have seen, and why SQL is what we are gonna see in this video. So SQL is used to interact with the data that is stored in the database. As I mentioned previously, data is maintained and stored in databases. So the data can be any of the data which we are dealing with in our real-time world. The data related to your transactions, your interactions, your voice, your videos, your daily life, like what are the purchases which you're making in your stores. Everything is captured and stored in database. So at the back end, how do the data is stored will be shown in this particular slide. If you see here, we have a database and the database will be trying to get the data and it will be stored in terms of tables. You can see the tables layout over here. We have orders, customers, order items. And in order to see this data, we would be using our SQL, which is like SQL, we'll formally call it as, to see the data. And we mainly used SQL to define the data, to change the data, to analyze the data, and to retrieve the data. We will come to know all these terms in clear in the upcoming slides. What are the commonly used terms in SQL? So first is database, next is schema, tables, rows, columns. If you see the picture over here, we have a database. Within the database, we have tables and there is a layer for each and every table designation. If you see here, we have one layer of separation here, another layer of separation here, another layer of separation here, another layer of separation here. This separation layer is nothing but your schema. Certain databases maintain schema, certain databases will not maintain schema. Schema is optional, but 90% of your traditional RDBMS systems maintain schema, whereas your cloud and big data related databases will not deal with schema, but all your traditional database management systems will deal with schema. We will see how do the orchestration or the flow of data will be arranged in the backend system in the next slide. For example, if you see here, we have data, we have schemas, and we have tables. That is what the previous slide is showing about. How do the data arrangement is done. So once we get the data will be stored in the database. So the database can be have multiple schemas. In this particular slide, I'm showing you only two schemas, but in real-time world, we can have multiple schemas. Each and every schema can have tables. If you see this particular slide, we have two schemas, schema 1 and schema 2, and both the set of tables are same in both the schemas. Yes, we can have. For example, when you're working on a project, especially in the IT world, we will have different environments. So the development environment can be one schema and your production environment can be another schema. In that way also you can manage your data. So it's not only environment specific, even within your production environment also you can have one schema for your actual usage and one schema for your business uses. Even that way of data arrangement also can be done. This is just only for your understanding of the different terminologies that are being used in the database world. I'm giving you a complete overview. How do the database arrangement is done? How do the data arrangement is done in the database? We have database, we have schemas, we have tables. Within the tables, we have rows and columns. And that's what this slide is showing about for the terms which we explained in the previous slide. So working with SQL. So normally you came to know that like when you wanted to store your data, we need to have a database, and we can store the data in a different arrangements, like either within a schema, table and all. But how and where we will be using this SQL is a question. Normally there are different sources available in the market to work with SQL. Normally, like databases which we have like Oracle, MySQL, Teradata, Postgres, and even cloud setup databases. Also we have big data database also, we can use it. Everywhere we would be using our SQL. So now for your training purpose or for your learning purpose, if you wanted to learn SQL or if you wanted to practice SQL, you no need to pay anything for it. There are some online sources available to you, and even if you have no need of internet also, sometimes once your installation is done, you can directly use it. Because we are in a digital world, but still there are some people who are working from remote areas where they don't even have internet. This particular course gives you a advantage of learning things even if you don't have an internet. Just you can download the video and you can practice it on your own. You need to have a proper device like your tab or a laptop or your Chromebook, and you can learn your courses. So we will try to see what are the different sources that are available to practice your SQL related concepts after watching this video. I have given you two sources over here. One is online SQL editor, which you can directly access it and you can practice it if you have an internet. And if you don't have an internet, still you can install SQLite browser and you can practice what all the things you can learn in this particular video. So we will try to see in detail how to set up this SQLite browser for today's video. In the next upcoming videos, I will be showing you the online editors also. Installing SQLite browser. Just you need to take this URL sqlitebrowser.org and you can go to downloads. The DL over here shows you downloads because I directly gone to the downloads tab over there in the portal. And then if you're working with Windows, you can choose SQLite DB browser for Windows based on your bit size. If you're having 32-bit size machine, you can choose the corresponding tab. But as per I know, majority of the people now using 64 bytes. That's what I have highlighted, the 64 standard installer version. So after downloading the package, what we have to do, we will see in the next slide. So there are different patterns which I was showing you here. Because I already installed, I cannot show you the installation prospective. I have taken the snapshot of my installation process. Once you download, you have to click on it and you have to accept the terms and conditions of the license agreement for this particular software, and you create a shortcut on your desktop. I will show you what we will be doing it. And once your shortcut has been created, you can click next, be available for you to use. So just at the end you can click finish and the database will be installed and it will be available on your desktop and it is ready to use for you. I will show you how do the database looks and how we can query in the next slides. Just this gives you an overview of how to set up your SQLite DB browser for your practice. So this is like a view I was showing you how do the view looks after your installation is completed. This is the SQLite view of your database SQLite browser view. So what are the different types of SQL commands? So when I say you're learning SQL, so the entire SQL commands are categorized into 5 types. One is DDL, DQL, DML, DCL, TCL. What is DDL? A data definition language. It will try to define the definition of the data what you're trying to store. Data query language. It will try to retrieve the data. In the previous slides, if you have seen, we have said why SQL. So SQL is used to retrieve the data, to change the data, to create the data, to analyze the data. So all these terminologies would be handling with these 5 SQL commands. So in the first DDL command, you will be creating the data from the database. In the DQL command, you will try to retrieve the data, you will try to query the data. The bringing data from the database to our human accessible console is nothing but the terminology used is querying. Query means to bring the data from the database to the viewable format view. What is DML? Data manipulation language. What is DCL? Data control language. TCL, transaction control language. We will try to see in detail of each of this command in the next slides, and there are some set of commands also, which command comes under what category, for what purpose we will use it, and we will try to see in detail. What is DDL? If you see, 4 commands comes under DDL commands in SQL. One is create, alter, drop, truncate. What is create? Suppose when you have a data, you have an employee table, you have a customer table, or you have some orders table, or you have products table. Your data is present. In order to store the data, what is the flow we have discussed in the previous slide? We have a database, we have schema, and we have table. So in order to create a database, we would be using a DDL. In order to create a schema, we would be using a DDL command. In order to create a table, we would be using a DDL command, which is nothing but your create. Create is used to create or make a object in the database. Either you can use it for creation of a database, you can use it for creation of a schema, or you can use it for creation of a table. Database will not be created by many of you because it is an admin activity. There will be an administrator who will create a database and he will give you access to create your tables. So 90% of the people who are working on a real-time projects will not have access to create a database and a schema. You will be having access only to create a table, create rows and columns in the table. So that's what the main use of create command. Create is used to create a database, a schema, and also a table. I will show you how to create and how to use create in this subsequent slides, what we would be discussing as part of this video. What is alter? Once your table is created, for example, if you see before 2020, there is no concept of COVID. But now, after the pandemic, we have every application. There would be a COVID flag. COVID is positive or negative. There will be a check mark, true or false, yes or no, tick or cross. All these applications added a new column which is like a COVID flag. Before 2020, there is no terminology of COVID, but now whenever you wanted to plan for a travel or when you wanted to go for any medical test, the COVID flag is mandatory. If you wanted to change your systems, then you need to alter the database tables that are stored in the backend system. Means what you need to do, already you have an employee table. Now you need to add a new column to that particular table, COVID flag. Whenever a new employee is joining into your organization, you need to make sure that he is tested COVID and he is not having any COVID related symptoms, so that the flag will be yes, means COVID is tested. He is having COVID, no, the flag will be no. Those kind of scenarios will be handled. So before 2020, there is no such kind of a scenario. But after 2020, we have that. Every application has to be taken. Even if you're traveling through flight or to train or to bus, even those kind of applications also handling it. So even for customer related, when you're trying to go for any hotels or something, even they are also putting you that kind of checks. So you need to change the backend table to add that column. For those kind of requirements, we would be using alter. What is drop? Now you have created a table, and if you don't want to maintain that table any longer, the table is of no use for you. Or you have started your organization or a company, and the company is no longer using that particular product or like a product related information. you wanted to remove from the database. When you want to remove from the database, for those kind of requirements, you would be using a drop command. Drop is specially used to remove the data that is stored in the database. It is not only like a table level kind of a thing. You can use it for database level, schema level, and table level. What is truncate? Truncate means it is just to remove the data. The table will be present, but the data will be removed. We will try to see in detail in next upcoming slides what is the differentiation of all these commands and how these commands will be used for which kind of requirement. What is DQL command? Data query language command. So the only command comes under this category is select. You have your data in your database, and if you wanted to bring the data, for those kind of a requirement, you want to be using select command. Normally, when you wanted to say that bring the data means you will say query the data. The term query is used to bring the database from the database to your human accessible view. You will have different tools for it, but normally we will say that query the data. When you have a term query, you have to use the keyword select. Select is used to bring the data into your console where you wanted to see the data. Next is your DML commands, a database manipulation language. So the data is present in your database, or if the data has to be inserted into the database or has to be put into the database. For those kind of requirements, you would be using data manipulation language commands, which is insert, update, and delete. You have your data. Let us take you have an employee table. Previously, we have 10 employees in the database. Now you have a new employee this year. For those kind of a requirement, you will be inserting the new employee record into the employee table. So the data is not present. Now you need to put this new record into the database so that going forward, you will be having existing employees and also new employee also. For those kind of a requirement, you would be using the insert command. You have a products table. Let us take, you have a different set of products. Unfortunately, we are not supporting that particular product because the product is not available in our store. So you need to delete the product. The product has to be removed from the table because it's no longer available. And if you keep on showing up to our customers, they will get confused because they put orders, but you cannot supply because the product is no longer being available in your store. For those kind of a requirements, you will be using delete. What is update? You have a products table again. So the price, let us take soap as a product or like some detergent as a product. Previously it is given as $10 or 10 rupees or 10 rupees or 10 pounds. Now the price has increased or decreased based on the demand on the product. You have to change the price of the product. For those kind of requirements, you would be using update. Similarly, your salaries. Your salaries keep on increasing based on the changes happening in the market. So when you wanted to update your salary, so an employee joined for $100, now you have to make the salary to $200. So you need to change the salary. For those kind of requirements also, you would be using this update. Update is used when you wanted to change the value of an existing column in the database. Delete is used when you wanted to remove the data that is present in the database. Insert is used when you wanted to put the data into the database which is not present in the database. I hope this slides give you a complete understanding of the DML commands. What is DCL commands? Data control language. There are two commands comes under this category. One is grant and revoke. For example, if you're as a developer, you have created a table. You inserted some data and this data has to be given to your analytical team or your user who wants to see the data. Let us take a simple use case. You have maintaining a bank and if you have collected the information of the transactions of a particular customer, you have inserted the data. Now the customer wants to log into the portal and he wants to see what is the overall amount of particular account in his account and what are the set of transactions he has performed. So he will be logging and he will be checking his entire transactions. How do the transactions comes to his application? You need to bring the data, you need to query the data. So when he queries the data, The data has to come and has to be visible to him. So the data was inserted by you, but the data is being queried by some other person. X person inserted the data, Y person is querying the data. In order to make the data available to Y person, you need to grant some right for him. That granting of access or rights is nothing but your control language commands which will take care of it. Grant command is used to provide the access to see, change, view the data that is present in the database. Similarly, if you don't like the customer, or if the customer is not authorized to see or not having any set of proper rights to see the data, so you have to revoke the access. In order to remove the access, we would be using the revoke command. In a simple terminology, grant is to provide the access, revoke is to remove the access. We will try to see how these grant and revoke commands will work in the next upcoming sessions. I will explain you in detail of all these commands. This is just like an introductory level video which I was making to make sure that what set of commands is used for what set of requirements in the SQL world, especially in the data world. TCL commands, transaction control commands. So you have inserted the data and the data has to be saved to the database. Unless and until you give a commit command, the data will not save in the database. There are some set of databases which do auto commit. Either the system does a commit or you do a commit. The commit has to be given so that the data will be saved to the database. Let us take a simple example of your Excel sheet or your Word document. After you typing a text in the document, you need to give Control yes to save the data or the document changes what you have done. Even if you are not saving it, the data will be auto saved. Means the system is automatically, your operating system will automatically save the data. There are some operating systems which will not do that. So once you close your browser or once you close your document, the changes will be lost because you did not save them. Similarly, in the database world also, if you want to save the changes what you have done, you have to give a commit command. So once you give a commit, the changes will be committed to the database. What is this rollback command? You have done some changes to the data in the database and you don't want to commit those changes. So it will try to roll back those changes. It will try to remove those changes. By giving a rollback command, it will try to remove those changes. In a simple normal world, your Control Z, when you type a Control Z on your keyboard, it will try to bring back your previous snapshot, previous changes. The changes what you have done will be rolled back to the previous phase. The same thing in the database world also. When you do a rollback command, it will try to bring the changes. It will try to remove the changes that are done to your data on the database. So if you don't want to make any changes, in those case scenarios, you can run a rollback command. So it will not do any changes to the data that is stored in the database. But when you run a commit command, the changes that are done to the database will be committed. It will be saved. So these set of commands is nothing but your transaction control command. The changes that are being done to the data in the database is nothing but a transaction. So in order to control those transactions, we have two set of commands. One is commit and rollback. So we will see in detail in the next upcoming slides. So now let's see the working session with SQLite browser. As I previously mentioned, like we have installed SQLite browser, and I'll show you how this browser will look like and how we can see the data. So this is our SQLite browser. Here we have different tabs over here. You can see create new database, open existing database, write changes, revert changes. Revert is nothing but your rollback. Write is nothing but your commit. So all these are the options that are available. So this is your database structure. If you can see here, whenever you wanted to insert or whenever you wanted to create a new database, you can do that. So I am trying to open a new database here. I am having some database. I am discarding my previous changes. Now I have my database. You can click here. You can browse the data. When you click, the database is there, available there. When you click on browse data, it will try to show the data that is available to you. If you wanted to write any queries, you can go to execute SQL. Now there is a table people here. I have written a query here. Let me bring detail here. So I have written a query, select start from people. When I run this query, there is an option for you here. Just click on this. You can select the query, click on this button. It will try to run the query. You can see I'll maximize this browser. You can see the query was executed with like it able to fetch 1000 rows in 9 milliseconds at row number 1. And what is a query? Select start from people. This is the query and you will able to see the data. So here, if you can see the different options that are available, it will give you all the things. I will explain you in detail when we have our next video. So this is the view of your SQLite DB browser, and you can use it for practicing your SQL commands which we learn as part of this video. I hope this video makes you a better understanding of the SQL concepts, and if you need any further clarification or queries related to this video, please share your comments so that I can make my next video with all the required details. Thank you. I hope this video gives you an understanding of all the SQL related concepts. Thank you, and let's continue in the next video. I am looking forward to see your comments, and please try to subscribe my channel, support me. Thank you.